Hello, bird. I have come to hunt you, you spicy little chicken nugget. No, spicy chicken nugget. No, don't do it to me. Blah, it's trying to feed me. No, I don't want to be fed. Whee! The monster hunting genre, for the most part, is an exclusive genre of games that only a couple of franchises have ever dabbled in. Primarily, you guessed it, Monster Hunter is the mainstay of this genre, having pretty much dominated the market in the whole human versus giant monster type of games. These games are tough, grindy, but ultimately a ton of fun for a lot of people, and the success of Monster Hunter World to the Western audience really drove this fact home. Before Monster Hunter World, this type of game was pretty much exclusive to Asia. It was super popular in Japan and Korea, with only some of the games in the Monster Hunter franchise being ported over to the US. Monster Hunter World really changed that and got literal millions of more people playing, with over 18 million copies sold so far, which is a huge amount for a video game. This success, of course, gave rise to copycats. Dauntless was one, a pretty solid game about fighting giant monsters as a hunter, and now you've got Wild Hearts, which is what we're going to talk about in this review. Wild Hearts, to me, is the first attempt at a Western publisher, EA, to get into this market and try to stake its claim in the genre given its popularity. This is exciting because I personally love this type of game, and I have about 4,000 hours across the Monster Hunter titles as a whole. Koei Tecmo, a pretty great developer to tackle this title, so I was super anticipating hopping in and giving it a shot, seeing what it was like to play a game that was designed from the ground up for a Western audience from the creators of Dynasty Warriors. The story is easy to follow. You're a hunter that's come into new lands, chasing after a beast that kicked your ass, to which you take personal offense of. You got to kill monsters, carve parts, make stuff out of their parts, and then kill bigger monsters. It's pretty easy. You also have a sweet Iron Man heart made out of spirits or some junk called Karakuri, because you died, but now you're back and got magical powers to summon crates and sticks to help you fight. And I'm not exaggerating, they're literally crates and sticks. Monsters in Wild Hearts are called kimono specifically, but I'm just going to refer to them as monsters for the most part in this review, as that's just easier for everyone to understand. I am not happy with a lot of issues in this game. There were so many systems and things that were done poorly that I just can't wait to rant about them, and the PC version itself is a complete and total dumpster fire.
Material.
Bro, she was not just dropped on her head as a baby. Her parents spiked her like a goddamn football. God, I have to restart my game. My sounds are all bugged. God, this is so annoying, dude. This is such a shit bug. I don't know how you can have this bug in your game when people are reviewing it. Like, this bug alone, having to restart the game like 70 times, has already taken off a point. Like, just by itself. This is not a bug that should be in the game. Now, I want to give credit where credit is due right out. The console versions are like far less of a flaming mess than the PC version is. They run okay, but have their fair share of issues, whereas by comparison, the PC version is almost unplayable. It doesn't matter what GPU you have, what CPU you have, the game will still run like absolute crap on PC, and there's no advanced settings like DLSS or AMD Fidelity FX or whatever it's called to help boost performance. Normally, this would be bad enough. You'd assume, oh, if it runs bad, then it at least must look amazing, right? No, this is absolutely not the case, and is one of my first major gripes with Wild Hearts as a whole while I played it. The game just doesn't look good. I don't know if it's the way they handled the anti-aliasing or how the game handles its particle systems, but it seriously looks like an upscaled version of a Nintendo Switch game. There were times, and this is not an exaggeration, that it looked like I was playing on a handheld console, as even in 1440p and on Ultra, it looked extremely pixelated, blurry, and just looked like it was shitting itself everywhere. To say that it looks and performs poorly at times would be a drastic understatement, as even basic things like putting snow on the screen makes the game look like a turd. It struggles to even look decent during any sort of monster battle with any effects happening, and the FPS consistently tanks while you're doing pretty much anything. The problem gets even worse when you move into multiplayer, which we'll talk about in a bit, as it seems like there's a multiplicative FPS loss tied to more people being in the game. I'll get 40 to 50 FPS in one fight by myself, only to get 20 to 30 when I'm with another player. And for a game that requires frame perfect dodges and inputs, that's not good. That's a bad thing. Just take a look at the snow area and the effects that are on screen, and you'll see what I mean. The snow seems to cause jagged, weird artifacts and everything. It just doesn't look good. I don't know if this is just PC related or what, but yeah, it's just bleh. Also, it's running worse than the Nintendo Switch. Like, it looks like a Nintendo Switch game right now. Like, the resolution's so fucked and it's just running so bad. Another huge issue is that on PC, sound is completely broken. I mean, absolutely and totally broken to the point where it will just desync when you're in cutscenes and you have to restart your game to be able to fix it. I'm talking like 70% of your sounds vanishing and the remaining sounds being incredibly desynced and bugged. The Steam forums are completely overwhelmed with people complaining about this, and this has been a known issue for over a week before launch, but as of writing this, it is still not fixed.
I had already been consulting with trusted kin on the matter. They suggested bolstering town defenses.
Oh, there goes the bug because I let her talk. And the bug again where my audio is going to be broken. I have to relaunch my game.
And well versed in the use of karakuri. Do not worry.
It's just skipping dialogue and overlapping.
They will become our strength. Safely.
Great. Now I gotta restart my game again.
Excuse me.
They even said a fix is coming, but you have to wait another week post-launch. It might be fixed by the time this review is actually posted, but holy crap, the frustration of having to restart your game every 15 to 20 minutes is insane, especially when you consider all the problems we'll talk about in a bit. I gotta just point out that if you know there is a bug that ruins the game experience for people, you should probably delay the launch. This is a really bad problem, and a 1 week waiting period after a game's already out is not acceptable. I will say though that random intense ugliness aside, sound issues and horrible frame issues aside, the game does have a really cool aesthetic look and charm to it. It's a mix of feudal Japan technology like samurai armor and equipment and swords and stuff mixed with old ancient technology, and it's genuinely pretty neat to see some of the things that you're introduced to. The castles are clearly Japanese inspired, some of them looking incredible when you're able to see them without particle effects, and the primary hub is pretty neat with things like bathhouses, trade centers, and whatnot all looking good. Also give credit to some of the weapons and armors themselves looking really cool, things that you can craft, although I was extremely disappointed later to find out that the high rank or upgraded versions of these armors are just slight recolors. Monster Hunter got it right when they changed the looks visually massively to higher tier versions of the same monsters. Recolors are just a letdown. Respectively, the animations and attack effects of all the weapons in the game are really well done and deserve commendation. They're definitely standout compared to a lot of the other stuff you're forced to look at. They're really flashy, and some of the ultimate abilities and weapons would fall under the just super freaking cool category, like the final attack on the cannon, which essentially fires a massive beam cannon with a finisher based on your chi power usage. It looks neat. It's like a Gundam beam. Okay, that was sick as fuck. All right, clip that. Someone hit clip right now and then name it Die Chicken. I want to use it in the review. Really though, where Wild Hearts falls apart is the fact that it didn't look at Monster Hunter and learn from the mistakes that that franchise made over several generations of games. To say that some of the systems in Wild Hearts suck wouldn't nearly be enough, as they're just incredibly frustrating for no reason at all. The game is hard, but not for any reasons that make sense. The reason the game is hard is because of bad decisions that have been made from a development standpoint, things that the player cannot do anything about. A lot of games like this are challenging because they require player skill to scale up to the challenge. Sekiro is a great example of this. It's hard as hell, but not unfair, and the mechanics simply revolves around you timing your parries. You can manage that, get better, and overcome these obstacles. Wild Hearts suffers from the difficulty being derived from gameplay decisions. One example of this is that the monsters don't have physical hitboxes, which allows them to get stuck inside of you and vice versa, not being able to see anything at all. This alone sucks. You can't react to attacks or do anything about what's going on when you can't see, and the camera options don't exactly help alleviate this. The The camera is always stuck at low FOV over your shoulder, so when you do get charged by a monster, which happens frequently, you're forced to just dodge out over and over and over and hope you don't take any damage. Monster Hunter and Dauntless both realized that having the player get inside of enemy models is an awful design decision and made that not exist, with both respective games having the monsters push the player away when they get too close. You know, common sense. This issue is further compounded by the fact that in Wild Hearts, the monsters, or kimono as they're called, can be absolutely enormous, so this happens quite frequently and all the time. This by itself, you know, being able to get into enemies and not see things, makes melee far more punishing to play. Melee in this game is an exercise in masochism. It is one of the most unfun experiences of melee I've ever had in a Souls-like genre, which I would consider a Monster Hunter series. Seriously, I gave up on trying to use any of the melee weapons in Wild Hearts because of this alone, and from what I can see, most people I've joined up with have defaulted to using the bow just to be able to see because everything else is that bad. Another big issue with the game's design is that most kimono don't stop attacking. They just don't. A few of the enemies are clearly designed for multiplayer, as there are no openings for you to attack when you're playing solo. This leads to immense frustration, especially with the monkey kimono, for example, where his recovery phase is another attack into another attack into another attack into another attack, and you're dead. The stamina system in this game does not work in regard to dealing with the clipping players and constant attacks, as you run out of stamina very quickly after about 4 or 5 dodges. You will absolutely have times when you're playing where you're just getting the shit kicked out of you and can't do anything, simply relying on spamming healing items and just hoping to survive. It just doesn't feel good, man. There's so many instances of this sort of stuff happening that it really sours the combat, and so many monsters just assault you relentlessly and never give you a moment to breathe. Again, I cannot overstate enough how just allowing us to zoom our cameras out way further would alleviate a lot of these issues. It's just insane that they thought this was an okay system and didn't learn from the mistakes of their predecessors. Funny enough, their new system, the Karakuri, is supposed to be the thing that counters the unfairness in the game and allows you to beat certain monsters. The premise is very simple. You use certain button combinations to create devices like walls, turrets, traps, and whatnot during combat to counter monster attacks. This, on paper, is very innovative and cool, but in my opinion was implemented clunkily and ineffectively in Wild Hearts. Let me explain. Remember how I mentioned low FPS and performance issues? These tie directly into the use of Karakuri and how quick you're able to use them. I'm not joking when I say a lot of monster attacks give you a 1 second window to build something, and in a game with frame drops, that's really bad. I cannot begin to explain how frustrated I got with the game eating my inputs to do a 6-button, that's right, a 6-button combo as fast as possible, and to have it consistently eat inputs just sucks. It sucks. What's worse is it doesn't even seem like it's just the inputs that get eaten, as sometimes the game reses the objects in the wrong order, which makes them not turn into something, or it just doesn't work at all. There's been times where I've tried to spawn a ballista, for example, that I did in the correct order, but it still doesn't transform, and other times when I need to throw up an instant wall to survive a charge, and it just doesn't work. The same thing fails. It's just so inconsistent and random, it's utterly infuriating. A core system that your entire game is built around not functioning flawlessly is really bad game design. Seriously, this whole game is built around the system of building to counter specific instant kill monster mechanics, and it doesn't work half the time. I've had to straight stop playing because of how frustrated I got when basic inputs like XXX don't even work. Why the fuck are you gonna design a game around this and then not make sure it's perfect on taking inputs? Your monsters don't stop attacking and your camera sucks, and this is the only thing that could make it tolerable, but no, this doesn't even work. Fuck. There's also limited resources for building these building constructions, keep in mind, and if you lose 1 input on a 6-button building combo, you lose the resources and are just screwed, which leads to further frustration as you do not get the resources back for deleting or deconstructing stuff. They're just gone. When Wild Hearts does work, however, when the FPS is good, when the inputs aren't eaten, and when the monsters aren't spamming instant kills for no reason at all, it's actually pretty fun. I found these moments to be pretty rare and sparse, but there are a few good fights in the game that I absolutely loved that worked the way they should and have felt and looked really cinematic. The thing that frustrates me the most about everything is that there is a good game here. It's just bogged down by things that need to be fixed. It's a genuinely fun experience when the issues above aren't present. The combat flows very well, the building is neat, it just needs to be more consistent, and I'm not going to give them a pass on releasing a game this broken and in this state just because it could be better. One thing I do need to say Wild Hearts does better than any other game though in this type so far is their weapon crafting system. It's a completely new way to do it, and it allows you to really customize the perks on your weapons, making choices all the more important. Weapon crafting looks like this. You have a massive tree that you start from the top, going down branching choices depending on which perks you want specifically. The primary perks of weapons don't carry over, but you can bring secondaries over, allowing you to essentially jump all over the tree and grab extremely unique combos for your weapon. There are so many choices in this system for you to do and grab, and don't get me wrong, making a perfect weapon will take so much grinding, but man, you could do some crazy things. Just take a look at my bow I crafted with all the bow specific talents for speed, allowing me to pretty much do everything lightning fast and pump out insane amount of DPS. Really, theory crafting and figuring out what paths to take and how to loop around this tree and pick certain things was a ton of fun, and the fact that you can backtrack and get all your resources back if you screw up is a huge bonus. I did so many unique combinations of weapons to get crazy effects, and some of them are pretty nutty. Being able to stack things like pure crit, pure element, speed on things, it's just cool. I would definitely love to see this sort of crafting system get copied and put in other games, as it's just awesome. Mixing and matching perks from everything to make the ultimate god tool is just sick. That being said though, the armor stats and crafting in Wild Hearts just plain sucks. There's nothing really cool to do with the armor, and honestly the bonuses are really weak. There's no set bonuses, and the perks that do exist are kind of mid. I never felt like anything I got was cool from upgrading my armor, and it just kind of served as a stat stick so I didn't die instantly. A system does exist where you can have either pure human or pure monster perks on your gear based on what upgrades you do to unlock them, but this doesn't even really dynamically change anything. It just seems like really rushed and unfinished by comparison to the weapon mechanics, which is a shame. As far as length, Wild Hearts is going to vary drastically on mileage for each individual person. For me, the game ran about 30 hours or so, with a lot of that just being grinding to be able to progress. There's a post-game system with hunting juiced up monsters you've already fought, but it's nothing crazy, and it just serves as do this until DLC releases filler. Some people I could see easily struggling and taking 70 hours or more to finish this just because of how frustrating certain things can be, but it's not a short game by any means, and at least it has that going for it. I don't know, Wild Hearts just screams so close yet so far on so many ideas that it had and failed to execute properly. The PC performance alone hurt my experience tremendously, but even without those core issues, I'd still be immensely frustrated by most of the mechanics. Without any more waiting, let's break the game down now. Gameplay gets a 4 out of 10. There's too many things that are just bad decisions that affect Wild Hearts. It's just unplayable most of the time. So close yet so far, it needs a lot of work. Go play Monster Hunter Rise instead. Story gets a 5 out of 10. It's serviceable, but really annoying and really repetitive. The voice actors themselves sound phoned in, especially in English, and they just are super disconnected. They're really creepy and uncanny, and it's just not a solid story. Presentation overall gets a 4 out of 10. The graphics are subpar a lot of the time, the audio is completely broken most of the time, and it's just not a pretty thing to look at overall. Some things are good looking, but others are just offensively bad. Technical performance gets a 2 out of 10. This game, at least on PC, is a complete mess. It barely functions. It runs like ass. I crashed a lot. I had to restart my game at least 100 times, and things just don't work. It's crazy it's shipped like this, and the wait a week for it to be fixed isn't an okay thing to say ever. And finally, value gets a 5 out of 10. It's fairly long for the price and offers a decent amount of content. It's also somewhat fun to suffer with your friends and to play through with them, although expect to get frustrated. All in all, this is going to lead me to give Wild Hearts a final score of 4 out of 10. There's just too much wrong with it, in my opinion, for me to score it any higher, at least on PC. and it's just not fun for most of the duration. So many of the game's issues can be fixed with simple patches though. Combat alone would feel a million times better if we just had way further camera distances and monster hitboxes. These are things that the developer can fix to improve the score, but as it stands right now, I cannot suggest anyone pick it up and play it, especially when Monster Hunter Rise and Sunbreak are a thing. On console, I'd say the score is probably closer to a 5 or 6, just due to a lot of the technical issues not being present, but it's still a painfully average game plagued with many clunky systems and mechanics that should have been worked out before releasing. If you want to play it, I'd say wait for a sale. The issues really need time to be worked out, and at that point, it might be worth a quick playthrough if you've got nothing else going on. Anyway, that's going to be it for this review. If you liked the video, hit that freaking like button and share this review around. Otherwise, go back and watch other videos and let me know down in the comments below what you thought of this review, what you thought of Wild Hearts if you played it, and what games you would like me to play in the future and review with the team. Thanks for watching. Until the next video, this is Delrith, and I'll be seeing you. Bye.